All right, this is Justin with Targeting Alpha, back with a breakdown video, trade recap video for DERM. So I took this trade today on DERM, and I just want to kind of break down my strategy on it, how I determined what my entry would be, and just kind of show you, how I formulate a plan of trade here using some of the indicators that I've discussed and some other ones maybe I haven't. But as you can see here, looking at this on a 2-year daily chart, it gets kind of choppy. I mean, you could say that, you can maybe draw a trend line down to there and it's holding, but anytime you got a daily that's kind of chopping around like this in this level since this big sell-off, I usually like to kind of bring this in a little tighter and map some support and resistance levels. So you can see that you had some support here that has now become resistance. Down here, it's got, your 3 wicks here in the 639 range, and also a little bit of support here at the 655 range, and some overhead resistance at 719, and then at 745 you could see that it kind of pivoted up into that level and sold off. So I played this stock once before from the 648 range up to 7, and it was holding that level pretty good. If you pull this into a 5-minute chart, they just had earnings last night, and as you can see on about 58,000 shares of volume after market, it did have a nice run up to the 780 range or 775. Now that was looking pretty good, and I think you just had some people coming in taking profit, or someone just kind of getting ahead of themselves a little bit with this move, and it continued to kind of sell off in after hours, and then in pre-market sold off even further. And looking at the earnings transcript, nothing really stood out as a real negative. Reading through the transcripts, I saw a lot of positive things about. They do have an FDA-approved drug right now, and it's kind of questionable a little bit as far as how much earnings potential, but they are trying to kind of rework up their marketing of that drug and try to make it a little more cost effective. So a little bit of positives out of that. And then the real positive is, and what caused that pop from a few days ago, or maybe a week or two ago, was they did have a phase 2B study on atopic dermatitis, and it met all the endpoints and looks really good. FDA approved them to head into phase 3. Now, with that said, phase 3 is still going to be quite a ways away, but I do think you can get some movement in the stock, and just kind of put it on my radar as a potential swing trade play when it made that nice move up the other day. And you saw as it opened up, it broke right down through that 655 range, and it sold off with some pretty good volume, about 60,000 volume. Maybe that was that guy from 56 or 58,000 just dumping his shares because he made the wrong move, but I don't know. You do see it run almost into the Bollinger Band here. It goes oversold a little bit on the RSI 5-minute, and it starts to bounce up. And you can see on this next 5-minute candle open up, it puts in a nice bullish candle. I started to think about trading this over the VWAP here, but for some reason I held off. I wanted to kind of see if it got held up at this open, which it kind of did and pulled back. But it pulled back, held the VWAP, pushed back up, and then on this candle it couldn't get through that 50 EMA, and it started to really sell off. So when I saw that, I went ahead and pulled up my fib extension, and I drew a fib up from, whoops, or fib retracement, I'm sorry. And you can see that sold off right into that 61.8 area. Let me zoom this in for you guys. I mean, to the penny. And watching this, I saw that rejection off that 61.8. Some volume started to come back into it at that point as I was watching the tape. And I started to think about a position here getting up over this 50 fib line and also up over this 655 support, because if it couldn't get back over that, it may run into some trouble and kind of pull back down to a double bottom or sell off further. So I was really looking at this here, and as soon as it kind of pushed up, the volume was kind of coming in, and I took my position here at 656 and with a stop at 649. So a 7-cent stop, so pretty tight. And as you can see, come back down, retested that 655 range, and once it bounced there and this green candle got up over this the open of this candle, I kind of knew this was going to be at least a run back up to a double top, which it did. And the double top kind of pulled back into the VWAP, held it, pushed back up. And this would have been a good place to enter if I hadn't entered earlier on this break of this this 67. And you can see it kind of opened up there right at the 67. And I think it did sell off here. Let me pull this up on a 1 minute. Yeah, you can see here on a 1 minute chart that 677 range. I kind of put in like a couple tests of that 677 range, and then it made a breakout over that level. So that would have been a good entry too as well into this trade. But just pulling this back in on a 5 minute so you can see it a little clearer. As it broke out through that level, you can see it pushed outside of this RSI, right into the Bollinger Band, and it pulled back and made a nice bounce off your 9 EMA. And it kind of held that all the way up, kind of rode that upper VWAP band up into this resistance area. Now, I really thought about taking this trade off. It was teetering on overbought on the RSI here, and you know, it's just one of those, like, probably should have taken some profit and maybe re-entered back down here, but I decided to turn this into a swing trade just because I had a nice cushion. And so what I did at that point, let me get rid of this fib, draw another fib up to this top where it started to sell off. You can see it tried to hold the 23.6 there, and when it didn't, it failed down to this 38.2, and which I talked about in my fib video. If you do have a 23.6 hold, that's going to signify a very strong trend. And if the 38.2 holds too, it still signifies a good trend. And, you know, you can get some more follow through from that. Now, once it breaks down that 38.2, a lot of times that can signal a retracement back to a 61.8 or a 50, or, you know, coming down further, maybe even just trying to double bottom the whole move. So as long as that 38.2 holds, I'm pretty safe there. I've already moved my stop up here to just under the 38.2 range, which is going to be under the VWAP, or volume weighted average price. You can see it's getting squeezed here on the Bollinger Band, which it should either break out to the upside or downside. You had this downward trend that you did have a breakout of and a retest, and then it closed with two nice candles right into 7. So that's kind of what I was looking for, is a close at 7, a nice whole number. So if we can get some traction on this heading into tomorrow and get up over this 719 resistance area, I think it has room to run to 745 at least. And once it gets over that 745, if you pull this back here, you know, it doesn't have a whole lot until 775, and then from there it's I'd say it's pretty much clear skies for a while. So just trying to get this swing into this, because you can see it's been chopping around this range, you know, even here from 639 to 719, 655 to 720, sold off into 650. So it's putting in a nice little range here. So I think if we can get some follow through on this, it could potentially move up and you know, break out over these levels. So that's kind of just the breakdown of my trade here, and I hope that's helpful. Kind of give you a little bit of how I timed the entry on this and how I you know, developed kind of the strategy. Now, if you're a day trader, you would have looked at that 719 level and just sold right into that, and that would have been a nice move from 656 to 719. You could have got some good size on it. It is a pretty liquid stock. Average trading volume is about 1.4 million. You can see it did put in a little over that today, which is a good signal. But we'll be watching this, you know, heading into the pre-market open. And again, if we get down here under this 688 level, 687, I'll just, you know, take my 30-cent win and call it a day. But I hope this helped. If you aren't familiar with Fibonacci, I did do a video last week on Fibonacci. I'll link to it at the end of this video. You can also just visit the channel and scroll through and find it. And also have a video on RSI. As you can see, this made a nice move down to the RSI over sold range here. So it gave me a little more confidence in this move here. But please like the video if this is helpful for you. I'm going to come out with a lot more content. I'm going to try to do at least one video a week on some type of, you know, indicator or trading strategy, as well as time to time kind of break down some of these trades that I make. I try not to do that too often because, you know, honestly, it's better to, if I can get some content in front of you, you know, breaking down, you know, the full-on strategy. But as you can see, when a strategy kind of works out like this, I like to kind of show you, you know, the thought process in kind of real time, how that happens. So if you're interested in more content like that, you know, subscribe to my channel. If you're new to trading, get active in the comments, ask questions. I try to respond to every comment that there is on the channel or any video. So you guys have a great rest of your night and a good day trading tomorrow. Hope you guys make a lot of money.